And good evening. Today is January the 20th. Right now it's 7:30, and I'm calling to order this evening's meeting of the Guilford Planning and Zoning Commission. For the benefit of those who have not participated in a Planning and Zoning Commission meeting, our procedures are as follows. The Secretary will read the legal notice of the meeting as published in local newspapers. The applicant will be invited to come forward and present the case, explaining to the Commission and others present what is being requested of this property. Comments of town agencies will be read for each application if there are any. First, there'll be clarifying questions from the commissioners, and next there'll be an opportunity for clarifying questions from the audience. Next, we'll ask those who want to support the application to come forward. Second, we'll ask those opposing the application to come forward. As this is a public meeting and must be recorded, it'll be necessary for speakers to identify themselves by stating their name and address before addressing the commission. The applicant will then be free to leave or remain for the balance of the public hearing and the regular meeting, during which time the commission will try to reach a decision on each application. Each applicant will be notified in writing as to the decision of the commission and has the right to appeal to Superior Court if desired. Decisions of this meeting are available the day after the meeting by calling the Planning and Zoning Office at 203-453-8039 after 9 a.m. I'd like to introduce the following members of the Guilford Planning and Zoning team. We have Tom Cost, George Underhill, Richard Wallace, I'm Rich Meyer, Ray Bauer, Phil Johnson, Josh Hirschman, Frank DeAndrea, Reggie Reed, and Lisa Marie Brewer. And taping for us tonight is Michael Graziano. Mr. Secretary, would you please read the notice?
Notice is hereby given that the Guilford Planning and Zoning Commission will hold a public hearing on January 20th, 2016 at 7:30 p.m. in the Nathaniel B. Green Community Center, 32 Church Street, Guilford, Connecticut, Monunketuck Room, second floor, for the following purposes. Anthony James Purificato, 174 White Birch Drive, map 58, lot 8-1, zones R3 and R6, reason subdivision for one lot. VFW 57 Mill Road, map 46, lot 62, zone R5, coastal area management site plan revision and special permit application for nonprofit facility to relocate banquet hall and parking lot to on existing site. Zoning amendment, DDR Guilford LLC, Guilford Commons, 1919 Boston Post Road, map 79, lots 34, 35, 36A, zone SCW, request to amend section 273-206B3 of the Guilford zoning code. The amendment will allow for limited illumination of signage on the tower of Guilford Commons and to revise the specifications for the signage located on the tower. Copies of these applications are available for inspection in the office of the Planning and Zoning Commission, Town Hall South, 50 Boston Street, Guilford, Connecticut. At this hearing, persons may attend and be heard, and written communication will be received. Dated at Guilford, Connecticut, this 30th day, must be of December, 20th day of January 2016. Richard Meyer, Chairman.
Yeah, that's perfect. And for tonight, we're going to have Phil Johnson's going to be a voting member tonight as an alternate. We are missing Walter Corbiere. He may be coming in a little bit later, and when he does, we'll do some switching around. Can I get a motion to open?
So moved. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Mr. Purificato, come on down.
Okay, I'm Mark Young. I'm a land surveyor with Waldo Associates, representing Anthony Purificato and his fiancée Jennifer Chestone. This property is on White Birch Drive, just a little bit south of Lower Lake there. It's owned by Anthony's father, Anthony J. Purificato. Originally it was part of Birchwood subdivision. It was lot 2, Birchwood. And by dividing it again, that makes us a re-subdivision. So the existing lot has a total area of, 139,590 square feet. The zone is R6, and the zone line goes like this. Our zone R3 is over here. So what we've done, have a proposed lot line like this, which will divide it into 2 lots. This portion accommodates the existing house, and this portion will provide space for a new house for Anthony J. and his fiancée. Now, this lot was originally laid out on a private right-of-way. Birch Lane was a private right-of-way. Sometime after it was laid out, 8 or 10 years later, Birch Lane was converted to a public road. It was accepted by the town. But the way the street line was laid out, it left a little, kind of a little triangle in here, which is not owned by Lot 2, which leaves Lot 2 with just 110 feet of frontage, which is less than the requirement for R6, so that makes it an interior lot. Okay, so we have designed the proposed lot line to leave, let's see, we're going to have 102,000 square feet, which is greater than the requirement for an R6 interior lot, which the requirement would be 90,000 square feet. This new lot will also be an interior lot, having insufficient frontage on the street. It's the major proportion of the lot is in the R3 zone, so we're using R3 requirements, which would be 30,000 square feet for an interior lot, and we have 36,000 square feet total. So we have two conforming interior lots. This one's R6, this one's at R3.
Could you point out 174?
174, which would be, the house is here,
Okay,
okay? The existing driveway is right here, okay, off of Birch Lane.
okay. Where's the dirt road, the birch,
Mr.
that
Chairman?
comes off of Birch?
Can you please have folks stand?
Beg pardon?
There's a
Hello?
dirt road that goes off of Birch.
Hello, if you're going to speak, well, let's let him finish up, then you can ask all the questions. We have to follow the decorum of our meeting.
Okay, sorry.
Okay?
Okay, so we dug some test holes out here. We found pretty good soils. We have 4 to 6 feet of soil, so there'd be no problem with the septic system. We've located all the neighboring wells and septic systems. We have a spot for a well for the new house. Now on the driveway, the first plan which we submitted, we preferred to come out this way because it's shorter and would be less site work. However, due to the sharp turn here, we would need to clear some brush on the adjoining property. The adjoiners were unwilling to grant permission there, so we have redesigned the driveway to come out over here onto Birch Lane. There is some ledge here, which will have to be excavated. This is kind of right on the edge of that ledge. I estimate 50 yards of rock will have to come out of there, but the rest of it is very straightforward for the driveway. That driveway will be a gravel surface, and I've specified some grading on the driveway, so it will be graded away from the adjoiners, and an infiltration trench along that side to catch the rainwater runoff. Also, we've specified a wood chip berm, which will remain along this line to prevent any runoff onto the adjoining property. And of course, silt fence around the entire site during construction. So I think overall we've got 2 conforming lots. We've got a good site for a house here, and we're requesting approval. Oh, we've been to Wetlands Commission for a mandatory referral, and they have reported favorably. Yeah, I think to emphasize, it's a family situation. This is Anthony's father, owns this house, wants to provide this off for his son and fiance.
So later on down the road, if one of them decided to sell, it wouldn't be a family situation, though, would it? Right?
I guess not.
Okay. So how far off the property line is that driveway?
This,
Yeah.
I've got it about about 10 feet.
10 feet, okay, good.
Reg, do you, meets all the specifications, the checklist for the subdivision, they're conforming lots according to,
Well,
that's what I wanted to just check if you're,
we think it does, but it's up to the commission, and I know there's going to be some questions which you'll hear.
okay. I'm just, with regard to the regulations though, it fits to the, I mean, these are usually pretty cut and dry, it's the frontage, the.
Well, it's going to
lot
be an
area.
interior lot.
Right,
So does it have adequate frontage for both lots?
Well, you don't have frontage.
Right, for an interior, that's why it's an interior lot, but it meets the
Yeah.
requirements of an interior lot, right, according to the zoning regs? These are usually pretty
Right,
black and
there-
white.
You're going to hear some questions about.
Okay.
I think maybe the junior lot contains R3 and R6 property.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's true, but I'm just saying if it's an R, taking the worst case.
You're going to get through questions about 273-5C.
Well, okay, I'll just hold it. Why don't we?
I could read a letter.
Yeah.
This is a letter from Kevin McGee, the environmental planner. I reviewed the plans for the subdivision of 174 Whitebird Drive. The re-subdivision is in the watershed for Lower Guilford Lakes. Any runoff or construction of this site could impact the lake. The applicant has completed the low-impact development checklist and is utilizing infiltration chambers to treat and reduce the roof runoff. As part of the low-impact development checklist, the applicant is required to contact the Connecticut Department of Energy and Environmental Protection if the site location is noted on the state's natural diversity database map. The results of the research indicated that a species of special concern, box turtles, have been noted to exist in the vicinity of the project site. The site has established guidelines that should be followed when working in box turtle habitats. Waldo and Associates have included those recommendations on the plans. Wetlands are located on the original subdivision site, and the re-subdivision lot is located greater than 100 feet away. The Guilford Inland Wetland Commission, at its January 13, 2016 meeting, voted favorably to refer the re-subdivision to the Planning and Zoning Commission. A copy of the referral letter has been submitted to the file. Recommendations for conditions of approval. Soil and erosion control measures shall be installed downslope of the construction to protect runoff from reaching the adjacent wetlands and Guilford Lakes. 2, the town of Guilford zoning enforcement officers shall be notified to inspect the sedimentation and erosion control measures prior to site construction. Soil stockpiles shall be contained by silt fencing and/or hay bales. Soil erosion and sedimentation control measures shall be maintained until vegetation is established or suitable material is installed to the satisfaction of the zoning enforcement. All site contractors should be provided with written notice as part of their contracts to box turtle precautions and CTDEP box turtle identification sheet prior to any site work. The environmental planner should be contacted to walk the property with the site contractor. As noted in section 272-24 of subdivision regulations, a digitized copy of the final subdivision plan be submitted to the commission in PDF format showing all property lines.
Thanks, Josh. Ray, what do you know?
Well, I see the issue, I think, with 273-5C.
What is it?
Well, it says lots in 2 or more residential districts, of which the lot is right now, prior to this division. When a boundary of a district divides a lot existing on the effective date of these regulations or on any, or on the effective date of any amendments, which doesn't apply here, establishing such boundary into 2 or more residential districts, the requirements of the district in which the greatest portion of the lot falls shall control.
So if the majority of it is.
Well, right now, the majority of it is in R6. So R6 should control, but if you split them, it is true that the one that's, the majority of the one that's split is R. So the question is, does this apply before the split or after the split? Because if you say it applies before, then I think the new lot also has to meet the R6.
So that's up to us to.
Well,
determine.
yeah, that's right. So this is a question you're going to have to make a call on,
Great.
because it clearly does not conform the new lot to an R6.
No.
But hadn't been split.
Yeah, but it, That's right. So the question is, does this apply before the split or after? Because if it applies after, it's okay. If it applies before, though, you can't just subdivide it. So let's hear everything else. So
Okay, good.
it's one of the issues we're going to need to talk about.
You want to say anything else in regards to that?
Well, I believe Attorney Bennett will address
Oh, good,
that
okay.
issue.
Good.
Good, excellent.
Let's hear from Attorney Bennett.
Now the moment?
Now is the moment.
Yes.
I'm Attorney John Bennett, and I'm representing your applicant as well. It applies after, is the
Okay.
question, in our view. And that's based not only on the language of your regulations, but on the way your regulations have been applied in the past to other subdivisions. The short version of that is that other subdivisions in this town have been approved with exactly this situation, and this commission has traditionally taken the position that it is applicable post facto, if I can put it that way. The requirement to comply with the larger portion zone, the majority portion, applies to that which is left in the majority zone, if I can put it that way. And that which is severed then has to comply with the zone which it's in.
Do you have some examples that you can cite
We
where
do.
we've done that?
Yes.
Good. We want to get that in the record.
If you just would comment briefly.
Okay, this is a good example. This is the Briarwood subdivision on New England Road, right by the Sharp Bend. This was all one piece. Prior to the subdivision, old timers here may remember it as a chicken farm. But the majority of it is zoned R6, and it's R5, 300 feet back from the street. Now, these lots on the street, which are substantially in the R5 zone, meet the R5 regulations, not the R6 regulations, as the rest of the parcel. So this area in R5 was subdivided meeting the R5 regulations. So there's one example. Now, another example is the very subdivision we're
If I could
in.
just for a second, Mark, and just for your information, without an exhaustive study, but handed out here, is an indication that this regulation has apparently been around since 1976. So,
Okay.
some of these are older subdivisions, but
No, I mean, that's a reasonable interpretation. If we interpreted it that way before, we should be
Yeah.
consistent.
Yeah, there's another example is the Birchwood subdivision right where we are. This is the first layout has been extensively revised, but this was approved with the zone line being here, R3 here, R6 here. These lots along the road frontage were designed to meet R3. Most of them are larger for marketing and other purposes. There's wetlands and so on and so forth. But all these road front lots, which are substantially in R3 zone, don't meet the R6 regulations. So
Okay.
that's the way it was interpreted at that time also.
I'm fine. I don't know if anybody else wants to ask a question, but I'm okay.
Have you found any instances where we've done it the other way? Where
No.
we have- No?
having said that, I won't say that we've been able to spend days and days and days looking, but here are two examples, one of which is right in the neighborhood of the lot that we're talking about. So I think you're the legislative body, you've interpreted your own legislation in this fashion.
And you're going off that interpretation.
Yeah, and I think it's consistent. I will also say, before I listen to Mr. Lightsey, who I understand is here to raise the very question which we've heard about, I'd refer you to subsection B, just above that paragraph C. And I think that if you read them, there's no way to read them consistently together with an interpretation that says the resulting lots have to conform with the larger, the majority zone, if I can put it that way. Because what that says is that deals with a situation where the zone line runs through a parcel of land, and it says you can extend the use of the majority zone 20 feet into the minority. But what that also suggests is that the rest of the minority zone has to comply with the majority zone, because that's what you say in section C. And if that's the case, you've eviscerated the possibility of the minority parcel to be used for anything. Because what B or C says is you shall comply with the regulations applicable to the majority zone, majority parcel. And if that's the case, it can't potentially, because use is one of the zoning regulations. We're not just talking about lot area, we're talking about the entire spectrum of zoning regulations. And I think it also would be, it could lead to really ludicrous results. I mean, if you had 100 acres of land and 51 acres was in the majority zone and 49 is not, are we really implying that you can't use the other lots, potentially? I think what the regulation is about, and I don't mean to take over your interpretation, but I think what the regulation was about was, rather than drawing the zone line around lots, it was an attempt to make a distinction that in the fullness of time, you would begin to have the lots dividing along the zone line, perhaps. Because there are towns which draw their maps on the lot lines for the zones. It gets a little complicated. It's a lot easier to say just set it back 300 feet. But having this interpretation, which you've adopted over the years, has the effect, as you can see here and in this other subdivision, of pretty much dividing the two types of lots on the zone line. And that may be another salutary effect, which is worth considering. But this is the consistent interpretation that we have been able to uncover so far. I'd be happy to keep looking. Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Well, I'm sure we'll hear the rebuttal.
Don't suppose we have anything more recent than 35 years ago, do we?
I'm sorry?
These are fairly significant in terms of the age.
But the regulation, the language of the regulation is exactly the same.
Okay.
That's in that handout.
Tom? Anything? No. For sure. All right, so you want to give us...
Want to move to that part of the discussion this evening? You want to focus on this? No, that's fine. I'm more than happy to.
While it's fresh in our minds, and we are everything, give it to us.
Okay. There's another one too we have to deal with on this one, but this one's the one that really I turn you over to Light C, 37 Boston Street here in Guilford. I represent, if we could flip this back. Thank you, Mark. I represent Stephen and Mara Mangeli, who own this particular property right here. And I also represent myself as an attorney in Guilford, because we have to make sure that the proposals that come before you actually comply with the zoning regulations. And I have a firm opinion that this one does not. Now, and I feel bad about that, because I know these young people want to use land as owned by their family in a way that they believe is reasonable. But in order to do that, you have to comply with these regulations, and I want to go over this. Factually, everything that has been said by Mr. Bennett is correct. His interpretations of everything that he said is exactly the opposite of what is correct in my view. We'll go over that. Do you have the language of the regulation in front of you by any chance? Let me
Right.
give this to you. I have plenty of copies of it here. This is the first of the regulations that you need to deal with. This is in the zoning section of the regulations. And as we look at this, this regulation, and as we seek to understand its plain language, the first thing that we have to understand, which I know you have these, I'll do this for the record, but it's of course, it's on record anyway. The first thing we have to understand is that the lot in question is the lot that exists today. This lot does not exist. So when we're speaking of an existing lot, we are speaking of the entire lot with respect to which this re-subdivision application is being made. But this lot does not exist. It is only proposed. So let's look at the language of the regulation. Lots in 2 or more residential districts. When the boundary of a district divides a lot existing on the effective date of these regulations or the effective date of any amendment of these regulations establishing such boundary into 2 or more residential districts, which this does, the requirements of the district in which the greatest portion of the lot falls shall control. That's mandatory language, shall control. Now, when you have a lot like this, an existing lot, remember it's the whole lot, it's not this portion over here, the whole lot. When it's divided by a zone line as it is, dividing it into 2 residential districts, the regulations that have to control are the regulations, quote, of the district in which the greatest portion of the lot falls. And that is this. Now, it's very clear that if you were to try to do something with this lot, no matter what, you'd have to comport to the R6 regulations. This proposal cannot because you don't have the land space, you don't have the land area. You have a 90,000 square foot interior lot that's proposed and a 36,000 square foot interior lot that's proposed, okay? This cannot be created in the R6 zone because you don't have the area, all right? Now that's just the plain language of your regulation. Now, the examples that were given to you with respect to prior decisions that have been made were all examples where there was a much larger land area in the smaller zone portion. You can do that. Well, let's take an example here. Let's take an example. Let us say this were a 100-acre piece rather than a little 3-acre piece. And let's say you had 60 acres here and you had 40 acres over here. Let's say this is R6 and this is R3. You could, in fact, ultimately develop this in accordance with the R3 zone because you have the land area to be able to create 2 R6 lots. Then a second step would be taken now that you've split this off into an R3 zone, comporting when it's split to the R6 regulation. You could then re-subdivide that in accordance with the R3 regulations. I don't know if you follow me on that or not.
Well, I wonder, so are you saying that it's okay in some instances to divide the lot before the case if it's the same zone and it's not okay if it's a different zone?
No. You can divide the lot first if you have the land area to do it that comports to the land area regulation for the largest zone portion.
So there are some instances where you can divide the lot first. okay.
Absolutely. And he's done it. He showed you 2 examples. But that was divided on the basis of having enough land area to do the first cut. And then re-subdivide after you make that first cut. You can't do it otherwise. Because your language is very clear. You have an existing lot, and you've got the divided line for your zone. No matter what you do to that existing lot, it has to comport to the regulations of the portion of the lot that is zoned in the largest manner. And that, in this case, is the R6. Now, I gave you the example of a 100-acre piece. The same would be true of 50 acres or 20 acres. The same would be true in the R6 zone if you had 10 acres and 3 acres. But it stops being applicable when you no longer have enough land area to do it. And that's what you've got here.
But let me ask you that. You're
And that's
saying
correct.
that if you could divide that into 2 R6s and then the 2 lots that conform to R6 regulations, then you could subdivide the R6 into 2 R3s if you wanted.
correct.
But at the end of the day, isn't that what you're winding up with? Even
That's
with
how
just
you get
one
there.
step? Well, that's right, but you're still ending up with the same thing.
Because you don't have
Okay.
the land area to create the initial
Well, I
R6.
understand that, but at the end of the day, you're ending up with an R3 and an R6 conforming lot.
But the purpose of the regulation is to avoid that very kind of situation. Because as you shrink lower and lower and lower in size, you no longer are able to maintain the integrity of the larger piece if you read the regulation in that fashion. If you read it in that fashion, you don't need the regulation. You eviscerated it. It's
Right, but I know,
irrelevant.
but what you're
So-
saying is if you could have divided that lot into two R6s,
Yeah.
and you could keep subdividing the new R6 lot to smaller pieces.
You could do
So you
that.
end up in the same place anyway.
No, you don't.
Okay.
Because you start with the big piece, right?
No, I understand that. No, I understand that, but you still end up with the bigger piece and smaller pieces.
If you had enough land to
Yeah.
begin with. that's
If you
right.
had enough land to begin with.
Exactly, and you don't have, that's the problem. And that's the purpose of the regulation, and to preserve the integrity of the area of the larger zone.
But my
And
point is
prevent
you still
splitting
end
up
up
in
in
small
the same
pieces.
location even though you couldn't provide it in the first place. I'm just,
Yeah.
I just want, I do see your point though. I
And that's the
understand
plain
the point
language
you're
of the
making.
regulation. You
Okay,
have
now,
to
I
follow
think
it.
Attorney Bennett also said that you can't read C along with B to interpret it the way you are. Do you have a response to that?
No, you misinterpreted that.
Okay.
All B says is, if you're trying to see whether or not you could create this little lot, and you don't have quite enough space because it doesn't conform to the R6 zone, you can move your boundary line over 20 feet just to see if you can do that.
Okay,
And you can move this boundary line a long way and still not comport to it. It doesn't work in this.
Okay.
It doesn't work in small space. That's the purpose of the regulation. To read it the way that Mr. Waldo's office has created negates the whole purpose of the regulation. The purpose is to maintain the integrity of a larger zone, okay? And you can, in fact, make that division if you have enough space. You can't make that division if you run out of space, and that's what they've done. The purpose of the regulation, in large part, is to prevent the smaller space from being chopped up any smaller, and that's entirely what's going on here. It can't happen. It just violates the plain language of your regulation.
okay.
I mean, how else would you read it? Yeah. And this before and after argument, well, there's no such thing as before and after argument. It's very clear, this lot does not exist. That's all there is to it. You have a lot that you have to, under your regulation, determine what to do with it. And you have a division line, and you have the largest piece in the R6, and your regulation says, whatever you do to this lot, no matter what it is, has to comport to the R6 regulations, period. And this, I'm afraid, does not. And I'm not happy to say that, because each of the people want to use this land, and their father wants them to use this land. Ordinarily, I'd come before you with an application that would ask for people's land to be able to use the way they want to. But I also come before you and have to tell you that when there's a pure, clear violation of your regulations, you can't proceed. There's another problem too, if you want to talk about it.
You got the floor.
Might as well, and then
Give it up.
Attorney Bennett can respond.
Yeah. This has to do with your subdivision regulations. Now, I think we don't even get to this. I don't think we have to because of the problem with the zoning regulation. But if you take a look at 272-31A of your subdivision code, which I can pass out to you if you don't mind, you'll notice. And I'm not suggesting we even get to this point as a matter of law, because I don't think you even have to, because of the zoning violation. But as long as we are dealing with public hearing situation, 272. Oh, yeah, John. I thought you had it. Let's presume for a moment that you've got, let's presume for a moment we have lots of land here, and we can divide this up and whatever you might want to do with the property. Whenever you have a lot less than 40,000 square feet, now read this to you. 272-31A. Lots less than 40,000 square feet in size shall not be allowed, this is anywhere in town, unless served by the sanitary sewers and/or public water supply. Well, we have neither here, obviously. Now, when the proposed subdivision is fewer than 5 lots, the Commission may vote to waive the requirement of public water supply with the written concurrence of the Director of Health and the town engineer, pursuant to approval of test well results, which we don't have yet, as well as a site plan, which we do have, a site plan for a non-conforming lot, indicating the proposed house, et cetera, et cetera. Now, such waivers may be granted by the commission upon written request of the applicant by a 3/4 vote of all the members of the commission, and when the waiver will have no significant adverse effect on adjacent property or on public health. Even if this were to operate, I'm going to suggest that this would have a very adverse effect on my client's adjacent property, simply because of the proximity of the development. But even though this isn't being complied with at this point, I must say I don't think we need to get to this point where we can deal with this. I think you have a clear zoning violation. I think you can proceed here with this, given the way it's been presented and the lack of land that you have.
We do have a letter from Dennis Johnson, who's in charge of the health. And I could read that into the record. January 19th, yesterday. Soil test conducted on the applicant proposed lot revealed suitable conditions for construction of a code-complying septic system. The existence of shallow bedrock throughout the lot will require design of a septic system to be completed by a professional engineer. Based upon soil test results and site plan review, it is recommended that the applicant's proposed re-subdivision be approved with the following conditions. 1, the septic system shall be designed by a professional engineer in accordance with the Connecticut Public Health Code. So,
No, but that's, we don't have anything from the town engineer, just the director of health, right?
Director of
It says here
health.
we need director of health and the town engineer.
No, I don't even know. We don't usually get something from town engineer.
Okay.
We do have, we've already read it for.
I'm sorry, Mr. Orson, I apologize. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
That's okay. No, go ahead.
I was going to say, you have to have test well results too, not just septic tests. But that's not here or there anyway. Just to let you know that this is another issue, but you don't even get to this issue because the zoning issue trumps everything else anyway.
Very good.
Question for you.
Is that it, sir?
It is.
For now. You're going to say something else soon. But that's good.
I
Thank
think
you.
it's good.
Counselor, your rebuttal.
Yes, thank you very much. None of what Mr. Lightsey had to say appears anywhere in your regulations. And your point is exactly right. You can't sit here and say, well, we're going to make this conform, then if you got another one, you can split it into smaller lots. That isn't in the regulations anywhere. Nor can that regulation be read consistently with the prior regulation. It's not where the boundary line is, as Mr. Lightsey said, can be 20 feet into the other lot, is the use. In that particular example, they're talking about the use. And the use has to be the majority portion of the lot. And we can't have it both ways, I guess. But if we're going to read the regulation to say that if you have a lot, the majority of which is one zone, it has to conform with the standards of that zone forever and always. Forever and always. So the line about, oh, well, then you just split it up and you make it smaller lots, it doesn't hold any water. I think the interpretation that this commission has put on this thing consistently in the past with the same language as we have today is what holds. You are the legislative body. You get to interpret your legislation. Your legislation has been interpreted to allow exactly this, with many more lots and much bigger subdivisions, without the business of this re-subdivision. The examples we've given you, the prior examples, weren't re-subdivisions, they were subdivisions. And that, what you see is what was approved. They didn't come back later and carve the larger lots into smaller lots because now they could do it because we're really not going to look at the regulation that Mr. Lightsey would suggest is mandatory and requires undying compliance with the majority zoning regulation. And I don't think the two can be read consistently. And therefore, I think that this is a conforming subdivision. It conforms to all the hard numbers of requirements for the lots and has health approval and has wetlands approval as well.
Assuming we get past that 273.5C, how about 272.31A, about the lot less than 40,000 square feet?
Well, I have to say, first of all, that raising this was news to me, and I give Mr. Lightsey points for that. But your zoning regulations allow development of individual lots down to 20,000 square feet without the requirement of sewers and water and public water in this town. Am I wrong about that?
We don't have sewers.
Well, that, putting aside the fact you don't have
In
sewers.
terms of, I think the town engineer and also test holes for the well, I think that may be more what Attorney Leahy was referring to.
Well, we have conforming test holes right now. In terms of water production, that will require drilling a well. On a lot that he says we can't have.
What do we do if our regulations say that it has to be served by sanitary sewers, and yet we don't have any, and yet we know that we have lots that are smaller?
That's an impossibility, yeah.
Well, I think this is also a consistency problem in terms of your interpretation of the regulations. That I know, I mean, I believe that you regularly approve lots of less than 40,000 square feet as long as they have the capacity to sustain a sewer and have a location for, a septic system and have a location for a well.
But that would be in direct violation of this.
Well,
I don't know.
Well, no, it says we can
You can
waive
waive
it. I mean,
I'm happy to write right now a request that you waive it.
I had a question that, can you give me your opinion of the plain language interpretation of this regulation 273.5C, or if you have one that differs from?
I do, because of your interpretation and the way you've applied it, and because of the inconsistency, this interpretation develops an inconsistency with B in my view. And one of the rules of statutory construction is that each provision should be given effect if it can. And the only way it can be in this context, in my view, is the interpretation which you've given it consistently, which is that the resulting properties have to be conforming, that there's still, this portion in the R6 zone will conform to the R6 zone, and the new may not.
So but for the inconsistency of 273.5B and our consistent interpretation of the statute to read it the way that, conforms with your perspective, you don't have a disagreement with Attorney Leahy as to the plain language reading of the statute?
Well,
Or am I
yeah.
wrong? I mean, other than those other, I just want to know, looking at the words.
I can read the words as well as he can read the words.
That's what, yeah.
The consequence of those words is what we're talking about. So I have a dispute with him about the consequence of those words.
But
I
not
can
to
read them as plainly as he is asking you to.
So,
And that's
can you jump back to the other one? I'm still stuck over here about the waiver.
Yeah.
It says specifically that the waiver will have no significant adverse effect on the adjacent property. And clearly, having someone build a new house very close to your dwelling will have a negative impact.
Will it?
How do we get around that?
well, I guess I'd say what is the adverse impact on public health and safety?
Well, no, it doesn't say that. It
Yes, it
says,
does. It
Yes,
says,
it does.
no significant adverse impact on adjacent property or on public health and safety.
Or,
So what's
or.
what's the significant impact?
well, the significant impact,
I just want it specifically, that's all,
okay,
yeah.
okay, so my idea of what's the significant impact would be, negative impact, is I know someone owned property in another part of town in Guilford, and they thought that they had woods in back of them, and it turns out that it was a lot, and they had a house built no more than 50 feet away from their house. And the way that impacted the value of their house was that no one wanted to buy a house that with someone right on top of them.
They should have checked the,
Right, but here we are on the other side.
But now we're creating a lot and creating,
well, I
don't think there's any impact possibly on health and safety here.
No,
Right.
but it is going to
The-
be a significant adverse impact on that property.
Well, if you'll forgive me for saying so, that's in the eye of the beholder very much. There are people who seek out living in the village of Guilford when the houses are less than 50 feet apart. apart.
You're right,
And they
but-
sell for big dollars.
Right, but this neighbor has hired a lawyer to protect.
But you see, that's not a fair estimation, because
Well, how
all
would-
I would have to do is come into a meeting and say, I object. Because I think it's gonna have an impact on the value of my land. That's not an objective standard at all.
Right, but we sort of have to sort that out. That's one of
Well,
our
I
jobs here.
understand.
Maybe
You
there's
have
some
to sort it all.
documentation that they have. Do you have any documentation that shows a negative impact on the real estate market?
No.
Well, we have a second meeting.
I'm not sure.
Well,
I don't think
we have one for this,
but we could always continue it.
this is just a re-subdivision,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
we can ask for more information, but there is no second hearing. That's why it's required.
Just a practical question here,
Yep.
over here.
Go.
Could someone tell me, actually tell me how far, what's the distance between those two houses?
Well, the setback is, well, I shouldn't comment. The
Yeah,
setback is
but
30 feet here. I will have,
So that's
Someone
about
with better
it's
equipment.
about 60 feet then.
more than that, I think, because the other house is 30 feet as well. Or should be.
About 80 feet.
And what's the next nearest
Closest-
house?
Closest point, is 80 feet from their garage.
Mark, what's the next nearest house aside from that 80-foot potential
I
distance?
would, this house out here, roughly...
No, no, from the lower house.
From this
Yeah,
house?
That house.
Oh,
to the
these
other.
two?
Yep.
I see. That's about 210.
So it's gonna drop from 210 to 80.
Right. Now, I don't know, over here, I expect it's over 100 feet.
Yep.
Yeah, but if it's an R3 zone, you're within your rights with the setbacks, right? You don't, yeah. So that's what you get in an R3 zone.
Right, but that's if we consider it the lots after the division.
Well, it's in
They
an
don't
R,
exist
that
yet.
piece of the lot is in the R3 zone, though.
Right,
I understand what you're saying, but
Right, we haven't gotten there. Well,
But-
we'll discuss it.
that's
But
what
you're
you can
right.
expect.
So you want to come up with it? Can we break in right now? You go ahead, sir. Yeah, rebuttal to the rebuttal.
First of all, just on that issue, with the R6 zone, it's a 50-foot requirement, not a 30-foot requirement. The R6 zone is supposed to apply, and I'm trying to be careful on that. But when you're looking at 273.5, B and C, and he's arguing that they have to be consistent, B has virtually nothing to do with C. B is trying to help you out when you have a problem with C. B is trying to help you by allowing you to move your division line by 20 feet to see if C then is a conforming regulation. Two more points I think are really, really important, very important. The law will tell you that when the plain language of a regulation is clear to you, you have to follow the plain language of the regulation. And I think this plain language is very clear that when you have a lot in two or more residential districts and it's split by a lot line, by a zone division line, you have to use for that lot, in any respective development, the requirements of the zone in which the largest portion of your parcel lies. That is as plain as it gets. Paragraph B has nothing to do with that. Paragraph B is trying to help you by saying you can move it by 20 feet if it'll help, but it won't in this case because you don't have the land. That's number one. Number two, Mr. Bennett also talked about the most important thing here is the fact that we're dealing with use, not specifically directive regulations, and I've really lost track of what he's trying to say there. But the language is clear that it's talking about all of the requirements of the district in which the greatest portion of the lot falls shall control mandatory plain language. You can't get around that. That's what it says. That's what it says. That's what you have to follow. And the next point I wanted to make is very simple. Does it really matter what your predecessor commissions have done in the past and may be incorrect? How many mistakes have they made in this town in the past? A few, many, I don't know. But you've got to start at this point in time with this regulation and apply it correctly for applications that come before you in this regard. And the only way under the plain language of this regulation that you can apply it correctly is to impose the R6 zoning requirements on the existing, right out of the language, existing parcel. When you do that, this can't work. And remember, you keep talking about, not you, Mr. Bennett keeps talking about, well, this lot and this lot and this lot. This lot doesn't exist. This lot doesn't exist today. All you have is this parcel. And what you have is an R6 zone regulation requirement governing what is proposed for this parcel. It's that simple.
Thank you. Any other questions for these two gentlemen?
Mr. Bennett.
I think you might want to say something, Mr. Bennett.
A rebuttal to the rebuttal to the
No,
rebuttal?
no, I'm not going to drag this on forever. I would note that Mr. Lightsey's suggestion that B is a boundary line, setting a boundary line 20 feet, and it doesn't say boundary line. It says the use, but in any event, we're going to ask that you keep this hearing open for one more round so we can come back on a couple of these points for you, if that's all right with you.
Okay.
I'm all set. I think that would be helpful.
Do we, should we seek any public comment on this? They're here.
We might as well,
Yeah.
while it's open.
If anyone else would like to give us a comment, one or two folks, anything they want to say? Any neighbors, joining property owners? Last chance.
I would like to ask a question.
Go ahead now. Yes. Could you identify yourself, please?
My name is Jim Delahan. I live on 132 White Birch. Is anybody familiar with this neighborhood here?
No.
Okay. I assume that this is the main White Birch Drive. And this is a right-hand turn. Now, I don't see, there's no driveways here, right?
Yeah, there is.
If I can explain, currently, no. The driveway serving the existing house is over here off of Birch Lane. Our proposal is to make
This
a
is
new
not,
driveway.
is this, oh, this is a driveway?
This is the new driveway that we're
Okay.
proposing.
So this is White Birch Lane.
This is Birch Lane.
This is the paved, this is paved, right?
Correct.
And then up
correct.
here is the dirt road
It's kind of
that
a
goes off.
turnaround. There's a driveway that goes out here to serve a couple of lots, and there's a driveway that goes off the end.
Okay. Well, where's 174?
174 is this house, the existing house, which is served by this long driveway here. That's the existing driveway.
And it goes to White Birch Lane.
Goes to Birch Lane, correct.
Okay. Now, I noticed that recently there were two like reddish flags put, and there's a modern house, it's a brown house with a lot of glass.
This one?
And it looks like there's maybe a driveway going to happen here.
Well, the property corners are here, and there's a marker here. You may have seen the ribbons there.
Yes, right.
Okay. This property does have frontage out here. However, due to the site distance limitation, we've decided to put the driveway over here. You know, to put the driveway here would require clearing some brush here on the adjoining property, owner property, and they did not wish to grant us permission to cut that brush.
I see.
So
Okay.
this driveway is not feasible.
Okay.
Okay, so there was some flag there, that's right by the Guilford Lakes Association sign.
Now, here, this is all cliff, right? This
No.
part of Birch Lane?
What do you mean? There's some rock right here, yes, and there's some rock on the other side.
So you're familiar with this neighborhood?
Absolutely.
Where's the long stretch of mailboxes is here?
Not that familiar.
Okay.
There's a house, this was Mr.,
This is the lake.
the lake is back here, correct. This is that garage, which is right close to the road,
Okay.
which has got that slogan above the doorway.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, that's that.
Yeah, okay, gotcha. I'm just trying to see. Where the dirt road comes,
That would be out here.
Okay, and that,
See
there's a
this?
huge, there's, that whole area is cliff.
There's some rock along this side here.
Yeah,
And then there's a house up here. There's a house here close to the street. Then there's a hill, and I believe there's a house up here, and there's an open lawn you can see from the street. And then there's a dirt drive that goes off alongside that.
oh, it goes this way?
Yeah,
Like
because
this?
the pavement comes down, there's kind of a turnaround area, not a circle.
Okay, I see, I
See, so
see. Now here it's cliff,
But yeah, I'm not
Cliff
familiar
area.
with that part of this property.
okay,
Since it's so far away, it's really not relevant to this project.
yeah. Could you point out 174?
That's
Now, where-
Mr. Connor.
Where is this driveway going to?
This driveway goes out here.
Okay,
It's a public hearing, so it has to be on the record, that's ex parte.
right.
Sir?
And where is the proposed driveway? There's
We
houses,
can't consider any of it.
Huh?
no, this is the property where the house, the new.
This is the
they want
proposed
to-
house, this is the proposed driveway.
Okay, gotcha.
Both sides.
I understand.
Sir?
Thanks. Yes,
If it would help you, you can go down to our planning office and they'll show you on maps.
I've been there. It's, everybody's talking French. I mean,
Yeah, I know. They talk French too. Are you okay now, though? Do you understand?
I think so, better than I have been, yeah.
Good, good. We're going to be
Now,
here.
let me make a suggestion to you fellows.
Go ahead.
I think you should have this kind of a meeting between yourself and the lawyers. I don't think this makes any sense at all to people interested in the neighborhood, you know?
Well, that's sort of the way it
My
works.
opinion.
Yep. Well, thank you. We're going to be back here in 2 weeks, so you'll have an opportunity, if you'd like, to go to Planning and Zoning and sit with Reggie, and she'll show you the best that she can. And they're going to come back and they're going to give us more ideas, if you would. Any other questions right now? Any other comments right now? Oh, we have some hands.
Hi, just a quick one again, just I'm seeking clarification. My name's Karen Johnson, and I own 226 White Birch Drive. And I'm just wondering where, if you could point out once again, where a proposed house would be going in the driveway, because it's kind of difficult for me to make out.
Okay, so let's see,
Just one more
26, you would be over here on the other side of the street. Right, okay. On Valley? Oh, you're over
Yeah,
here.
I'm over next door to them.
Okay, gotcha.
Okay.
Right.
So I'm over here.
Okay, so
Where's this house in
the
line?
proposed,
going to be?
the proposed house is right here. This is is it Benjelli? Their house is here.
They're my neighbors.
Yeah,
Yep.
the driveway is here.
Okay.
The house would be back here, kind of at an angle off behind the garage.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Anyone else? Remember to tell us who you are.
Sure, I'm Bruce Rosenchik. My husband and I live at 130 White Birch Drive, which is, I'm trying to see, which is right here, 130. And we're sort of, first of all, we've enjoyed being neighbors with Nancy and Tony all these years, and got to meet Jennifer and Anthony last week. And we went and saw the plans at the town hall. And we were talking about sort of assets or property values. We live right here where the driveway would be going through. And I'm well aware and I respect the property lines and the zoning regulations. There's the ledge that they're talking about isn't like buried ledge. It's a sort of a magnificent piece of like 30-foot tall ledge that for us, we always knew it wasn't our property, but it acted as a nice visual. That's why we've been good neighbors. So it was a nice visual property line. And our property line ends with, I guess, almost 10, 12 feet right before it. But visually, I don't know when they were zoning this, when the cottages were first built in 1940, you just assumed it was your property. And when we first bought the house, we couldn't afford to have it surveyed. The previous owner said, yeah, it goes right up to the rock wall. It's not there, though. And we use the yard for, refuse for the leaves and things. So our concern is just that the impact would be as minimal as it could be for the expense also for Anthony and Jennifer, but also for our aesthetics and the property value of our house. As you can see, it sort of goes right in front, and there's no boundary. It's just the tiny lot. It's one of the smallest lots in Guilford Lakes, and it just sort of puts our house on an island. It's sort of an emotional aspect. It's not even, we're, like I said, again, we respect the laws and everything. It's just a statement of what it will do to our property if the driveway goes through. And I imagine for construction, you want to minimize taking apart the ledge. When I talked to Anthony, they said blasting probably wasn't going to happen. It would be an excavation situation, but it still significantly affects our lot. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Please, come on down.
We did consider that, the driveway will be right behind the house. We looked into some landscaping along that line, and a row of western arborvitaes would be willing to plant, all along the back there, which would provide a fairly substantial screen.
And Mark, how far away from their house is that driveway?
About 50 feet.
50 feet.
50, 60 feet.
Okay, thanks.
Mr. Chairman, Dirk Clausen, Waldo and Associates. The Western Arborvitaes was recommended to us by our landscape architect, Larry Appleton, because it's deer resistant. And the only negative is the Western Arborvitae gets, too big sometimes, but it can be topped, so its size can be controlled.
Good, thank you. Anybody else? Sir?
Vincent Smolas, 130 Whitebirch Drive. Just kind of curious, why does the driveway have to go exactly there? Is it possible just to lift it up a little higher?
Well, when we first looked at it, the thought was to share the driveway for a ways and then cut over. But coming in any other way across that ledge would be a much greater amount of rock excavation in order to be able to construct a driveway that's a reasonable grade.
On the plan that we saw downtown, okay, where you draw out the rock, okay, at the top end of the rock. On the other side, it seems like there's no rock there. So why?
I'm sorry, I don't get it.
On the other side of Whitebirch Drive.
No, as you move, where that rock wall is, and if you go further up, if you look at the plan that's downtown, you go to the top end of the rock, and it's like
up the driveway.
Why don't you show it? Because this is the map.
Yeah.
Josh, you're right.
This
right here.
Okay, this is your house. Yeah.
This is our house.
Right.
This is the driveway that you're proposing.
Right.
Okay. I understand. We'd like it to be higher. Yes, I understand. There's more rock to blast or however you do it. However, in this drawing, the rock ends here. So why not?
Yeah. It's because of the steepness of the grade. I tried to lay out a driveway coming in here, but because it's so steep, you have to excavate some rock to get it flat enough to be able to drive.
I don't understand, because I've walked up back there myself, and the land back there is pretty level.
Yeah, but this is a fairly steep driveway here. But if you go up the rock, it's even steeper.
And this driveway will be pretty much as steep as...
Well, not really. According to our survey, where we got all the grades.
And I understand it's not going to be that high, but yes, it will be.
Well, this is much higher here than it is over here. This is a...
But even if you go straight across?
But if we go straight across, then we're about 20 feet higher than we are here.
So you just connect with the existing driveway?
But the town has regulations as to how steep a driveway can be. Also,
it's already there.
No, it's not. But also, too, this is quite a lump. In order to get through there, we have to excavate several hundred yards of rock. Here,
But
to
you
get 50
show it
yards
that
of
it
rock.
is.
Well, that's the exposed ledge. You know, this is to show the exposed ledge. You know, there's a couple of feet of dirt on top of the ledge here.
Shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line.
Well, that would be out here.
I mean, across here.
You know,
I mean, you have it here, there's no rock.
there's rock in the ground there.
But you can drive over it. If it's in
But
the
it's
ground,
too-
you
it's
can
too-
drive over
it-
it,
it's
and you
too
don't have to
steep.
blast
No,
it.
it's too steep. You can't get up there. You know, you couldn't drive up there.
I posed my question.
I understand your concern, and, you know, that was the original thought, was to share the driveway, but you just can't make the grade.
Understand.
Well, it's just too steep.
I mean, I've been up there, it's
Sure.
right behind our house.
Yeah.
It's pretty much flat, straight.
It's a smooth grade from behind your house, but from over there, from the driveway, it's very steep.
Okay, not to cut anybody off, but we're going to do an unusual thing. We're going to have a site visit because we want to take a look and see what we're talking about. So we're going to schedule a site walk on January the 30th at 8 a.m. The Planning and Zoning Commission is going to be at that property taking a look around. It's January the 30th at 8 a.m. You want to table this? I'm sorry?
8 a.m.?
8 a.m. 8 o'clock in the morning.
I'll move to continue this until the February 3rd meeting.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Good, thank you. We'll go take a look at what we're talking about. Thank you. Thank you, sir. All right. VFW. Can I get a motion to open?
So moved.
Second? Any seconds?
Second.
There we go. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. That was a quick one. It only took an hour.
And a half.
It's 8:30.
10 minutes. What time did you get here, Frank?
Come on, Frank. Yeah, well, okay, so counting from the time you were here.
Frank brings the coffee. Box of Joe.
Yeah, where is that coffee? Not that I can have it, but I bring candy.
I don't want people to think I'm trying to.
Sway opinions.
Yeah.
Unlike the candy.
You know, they could just back part of the line and not have it impact. You know that, and I know that. I don't know why they won't do that. Someone's waving at you.
Good evening. I'm Russell Campaign, and I'm here with Todd Anderson. And we're here, I'm from 131 Boston Street, CK Architects and Anderson Associates with Todd. And we have Larry, who is the director of the VFW here, that can answer any questions about the operations and such. But we're here to represent a new proposal here for the VFW. A little bit of history. Basically, the VFW has been in that location for quite some time. They got a special permit in 1984, which gives them the ability to do what they do there, which is basically hold banquets and have a special private club associated with the VFW use. And we're looking basically to update the facility. The facility has sort of fallen into a little bit of disrepair, and it's a little bit of a burden, both energy-wise as well as upkeep and deferred maintenance-wise on the overall ability of the VFW to sort of offer the programs and such that they have. And so there was an effort by Steve Spurrell that basically pushed to try and find money to allow for them to actually recreate and improve on the VFW. And through a lot of efforts and a lot of time, we were all successful in getting a grant of about $1.4 million from the state in order to pay for a new facility. And the idea behind it being that they would be able to recreate the facility, build a new facility that is basically energy efficient and very low maintenance, and also potentially a little bit of improvement and really leverages the location to allow them a revenue stream through the rentals that they've always done before of the main hall to be able to fund programs and bring in, and I think the main effort is to reinvigorate the program to bring in new veterans into the program, which are looking for something slightly different from what the older veterans have been looking for in it. And so we've done our best to put together a proposal, I think, that really leverages the site, gives them something that's going to be a real asset institution to the town and a real asset to the town in the future. And so to present it. The big sort of move and sort of looking and analyzing the site, currently the existing, if you've been down there, which I'm sure, sits along the road. It's about 5 feet off the road in the front corner of the property here. And it's never been really ideal the way you enter the property. It's basically an old laundry that was expanded onto. It's basically the back of the property that you see, and it's a little confusing for people to come in. But it also means that all the traffic comes down the public road, which is Mill Road, and comes around the end of the building and then comes into the parking, which sits a gravel parking lot right on the pond on this far side. So it's bottlenecked in and out, which is a real traffic issue. But it also gives the best views, the best feel of the site to the parking lot and not to the facility. You often are in the facility that sits here with no real understanding of where you actually are in location to the pond. And so my first move was basically to suggest the potential of switching the building to be on the back side of the property nearer to the pond so it took in the views, and put the parking in the front so that there could be a loop drive that gave access to it. And so that was received really well. The state really liked it, and we've actually been through both wetlands and sought variances, and everybody's sort of well received that. There was a little bit of initial hesitation associated with it, but actually when we started to go through the limitations of the site, everybody sort of came to the same conclusion that this was a good opportunity. So the other thing that I should mention, a lot of it pivots. There is an existing septic that we're leveraging that sits in basically ideal location on the site, which is right here. So to sort of orient you in the bigger picture, the pond is over here. There's a spillway that comes through here that basically drains the pond. It dates back, I don't know when it actually dates back to, whether it was originally part of the mill facilities and such that were there. But basically the man-made pond is held by the dam that spills through on this side. And then there's Mill Road that comes in here, which is a town road, which dead ends at this point right here. And so we're proposing the new access to come around and loop with a drop-off in the front and the new building sort of sitting on the pond with its public space on the back side. To sort of, I don't know where you want us to sort of go through how much detail, but I think I'll start with the site. I think are we all open as far as the site plan, the special permit, and the CAM are all open? So you want to sort of do it all at the same time?
That would be my suggestion.
Okay. All right. All done. So to talk a little bit about the way we're handling the landscape in the site plan is we are planning to pave the new lot in the front here. We've got perimeter trees that are screening it and sort of addressing the regulations for the site plan review. Our lighting that's on this area is on 12-foot poles and is maintaining the light just in the areas that we need them on our property, and they show in our photometric plan that they fall off to zero immediately after the edge of the property. I think we've sort of, the feedback and the way it was said by the design review, which gave positive feedback, is that yes, the regs say that they'd rather have the building in front and the parking in rear to screen from the public way, but they said really the public way in this case is really the view across the pond from River Street, and really that's what they saw as the best location and the best view for the public way, and so they actually appreciated the building being the primary view from where you see it from the public way in this area, given that this is a dead-end street and not really a throughway. They saw that this was more of an access and a back access to the way that, so they liked the property, the building itself screening from the pond and the aesthetics of the pond, screening the cars, which are tucked behind here, as well as the lighting. We are planting a buffer along this edge and have a 4-foot aluminum black sort of pool fence that runs the perimeter of this to really define a hard edge, avoid anybody wandering into the pond in any way, but also to sort of set a delineation and keep everyone back where the access on the paths and such that are along those lines here. Right now, there's really no delineation of the pond. There's no fencing, and the parking lot kind of spills with grass right into the water's edge now. I think that delineated edge really will start to control access and probably help to maintain the existing habitats that are along the edge here. To get into the facility itself, the way that we're laying this out, let's see where we go. So as you enter in, there's a drop-off in front with an entryway that comes into a vestibule. It's similar to the way that the existing facility is laid out, in that there's the private club is going to be right off of this vestibule on this side here. So that has to be delineated somewhat differently and be able to have access separately from the main hall. And that's the same way it is right now. So you come in and there's access to a unisex bathroom that's in here, and then the main hall. Off of the vestibule, we also got access to the women's room actually, and that was a request to the veterans because this probably will be taken over by the men, and they want a women's access off the vestibule. So this will also be a public area here. And then you come in through the facility for the main banquet hall, which is approximately the same size. It's a few square feet different from the existing hall, but it's approximately the same size as the existing facility. You come down, there's a coat area, and into the main hall, which will be a timber-framed cathedral space that sort of looks out onto the pond in this direction and this direction, with a patio off on this side. So program-wise, seating count-wise, and what they're planning to do as far as who they're going to rent it to and how they're going to use it is exactly the same as it has been since 1984 and actually prior to that original special permit. The size of the special club, the private club area over here, again, it's actually a little smaller than the existing club. It has about the same seating count in it, but again, the program use is basically the same. The size of the building has grown about 650 square feet, but that's attributed to really the bathrooms and the ADA access being brought up to current code. And we have added quite a bit of pantry storage and storage for tables inside. Currently, the facility, when they have food drives and other things along those lines, will rent a pod outside and actually store it there as a temporary storage. And so the effort was made to actually have additional pantry storage and sort of back-of-house storage that made the facility actually not need those pods anymore and be able to bring it in-house. Just to give a sense, one of the requests is actually 2 walk-ins for both Thanksgiving and for Christmas. There was 120 plus meals and turkeys that were stored as they put the packaging together and distributed them to community members in this area, families in this area. And that happened both at Thanksgiving and at Christmas. And so we're basically going to be utilizing that storage, and that extra increase is really just for the functions they do to the community like that. And as well, it'll all be built to code. The new, it'll be very energy efficient with a SIP panel construction, which is basically a well beyond code with a foam insulated panel that will surround the whole building. We're probably 30% beyond code on the walls and the ceiling and the windows. And so it will be, again, a very low cost to continue operation of this, which is one of the requests that they've made. And outside, in looking at the building, one of the things that was sort of inspirational to them was a project that I had done up in Pomfret for the Connecticut Audubon Society, which again sort of picked up on some of the barn-like motifs. This was a facility that actually had other barns around it and such. They wanted to actually blend this into a farm field. But the existing building as well as the mill across the street, there's an aesthetic to that area that sort of suggested that this might be a good fit. So this gives you a sense of the type of detailing that we're talking about with the cupola, the timber frame exposed, and the details as far as the way that the building will look on the exterior. To look at the actual elevations, this is the main entry that you'd come into with a cantilever roof with some timber detail here. The main sign will be over on this side and lit. And then along the sort of water side, the eastern side of the building, there's another door that comes into the private club area, and a window into the kitchen, window into the club area, kitchen window, and then this is that recessed patio area that's on the pond that's right by where the flagpoles are. And coming around to the other side, we've got the windows that look toward the pond, and then on the side that faces sort of west we have a loft up on the roof that's very discreet and somewhat and very screened from the front entry and definitely screened from the pond. We have a loft that we're going to have our condenser units, an egress door that the fire department requested, and a walkway and a privacy fence that runs that perimeter line. So it's very simple. It's sort of keeping in line with the existing facility and what they're used to seeing and like. Then the materials are hardy board siding and low maintenance in the way that they'll have to be maintained, but also have an integrity to them. They're not vinyl, they're not, and one of the requests actually is that we do pick, I'm not sure it'll be red, but the design review wanted it to be a strong color that actually wasn't just beige or gray. They wanted something that actually, had some life and identity to it. Sort of working through, it's compliant. The variances, so that you're brought up to date, we did have to seek a side lot variance, a rear lot variance, and the sum of the 2 side lot variance associated with the proposal, which we were successful in getting. Basically, the hardship was that the existing facility, being so close to the front property line, was viewed as that we were lessening the nonconformities in the way that we were positioning the lot, and that was received quite well. We're compliant in other ways associated with the height and everything else associated with the way that we're proposing the building. I'll let Todd speak to the drainage systems as part of the CAM. We will. There were a couple letters and such that we received. I guess I can react to those and speak to those when they're read in. I think that's probably the better way to do it, and then maybe the CAM can be done last, I guess.
I could read this into the record?
Sure.
All right, here we go. It's dated today, and it's from Kevin regarding the VFW. The applicant has completed the checklist to guide low-impact development best management practices and is utilizing some of the recommended practices. The proposed plans show the development being constructed on an already disturbed portion of the site. The proposed building is shown to be constructed no closer to the wetlands than the existing building. The stormwater system has been developed utilizing low-impact design principle consisting of catch basins and roof leaders that discharge into the underground infiltration system located in the parking lot away from Mill Pond. The stormwater system is designed to treat the first inch of rainfall. The plans of the project have sedimentation and erosion control procedures that are in compliance with 273-97B subsection 6 of the zoning regulations. In the Guilford Inland Wetlands Commission at the December 5th, 2015 meeting, approved a regulated activity with conditions of the removal of the existing building to be replaced with a new one in a different location. The construction of a new parking lot, landscaping, and widening of Mill Pond Road for parking within 100 feet upland jurisdictional review area. In addition, the commission approved a referral to the Planning and Zoning Commission with a recommendation for conditions of approval that the generator be located away from the wetlands and the site lighting not illuminate into the wetlands. A copy of the letter is provided under a separate cover. In order to make sure that the natural resources are protected, I recommend the following conditions of approval. 1, the architect or engineer of record shall inspect installation of the pervious pavers and provide a letter to the zoning enforcement officer certifying that the pavers have been installed according to plans. 2, that all lighting be dark sky friendly and no lighting shall overcast to the wetlands or water courses. And 3, the generator be located away from Mill Pond as recommended by the Wetlands Commission. And before you respond, I just want to get one other letter in from Dennis Johnson, dated yesterday. The applicant proposed banquet hall relocation will not affect the leaching capacity or location of the existing septic system. Based upon site plan review, it is recommended that the applicant's proposed use be approved.
So I think in general, Kevin is speaking positively of our proposal, and he's witnessed. He was at the actually it wasn't at the Wetlands meeting, but in regard, basically, I'm happy to review the pervious paving setup. We do that regularly, and we'll be on site during this, so that is not a problem. And the one area that we do have a little bit of a challenge, and we wanted to sort of speak to you a little bit about, is the generator location. The generator is considered a structure and needs to meet all setback requirements, and so we are replacing the generator on this back corner, which is off the side setback and in compliance with the zoning regulations. And we're challenged to find other locations that do not need a variance associated with placing it on the site. It is something that is pretty critical to the way this works. I just said that they had 120 turkeys for 2 weeks. That would be a big disaster if they had a power outage during that time and had lost them. So it's not as though it's a residence that it's a luxury to have the generator. It's something that's pretty important both for life safety as well as how they use the facility. So the options we see, so we're placing it here, which is basically in the existing parking lot area that there is now, and we're proposing a water-cooled generator that will be better than most residential style generators. It's much quieter, it's more like a car than it would be an air-cooled generator, which is a less expensive type generator. So I guess from my perspective, that location is now seeing cars that are parked there regularly, pulling in and out and running idle. We're going to have a generator that cycles once a week for an hour to exercise the battery and such, and then we'll run obviously when there's power outages. So the first is, if you feel that concern associated with the noise of having the generator back here on the wetland is enough to say we feel that that's an important condition that's put on here, it at least gives me something I can take back to the to the ZBA potentially to seek variance. But the options we see is either to put it up on the mechanical loft, which I have not gotten feedback from the fire department as to whether they will allow that. I have a feeling they'll be concerned about the ability to access that. It's very different from an electric condenser being up there to have a gas-powered unit, but they may, and I don't know, and it might be a special unit that they'd allow. So that is one option up on the top, but I will say servicing and weight and such, it's not ideal. And then the other is to expand the enclosure of the dumpster over in this corner. That's where I would need a variance in order to get it. I'd need a side and a front setback. But unfortunately, the setback on this side, all of this landscape buffer area, which is also near the wetland on this side, is all within the setback, so I'd need a variance on that side as well. And obviously, this side is all closer to the pond than what was requested. So I guess I sort of put that a little bit to you. If you push back and say, we can't have it there, I've got two avenues I can pursue, but your pushback would give me something I could take as a hardship to the ZBA.
So at the wetlands meeting, a couple of the commissioners made their approval contingent on that moving away. And I don't know that you would have had a satisfactory recommendation without that.
Okay. Well, again, I guess I can use the inland wetland, but yours I think holds more weight to take back to to seek a variance associated with not being able to place it where it is conforming on the lot.
Right. The concern was a couple of the commissioners are aware that there's some sort of
there's a nesting bird that
right.
nests over that nests over in this area.
Right. And the low frequency vibrations that are associated with generators just exercising is enough to change the nesting cycle. So this would have a significant impact to the waterfowls that live in that area. So I know, and I was at the meeting, so I know that they would not have approved it if the generator wasn't going to move. So that's sort of a real hardship indicator for you to go back to ZBA.
Okay. So we can seek. If the fire department will let us do this, or we can seek a variance associated with this location, and we have those options. And there might be just a matter of cost to find a generator that can go up on and off like that. And I think that's. Was there anything else that needed to be addressed?
Do you have a problem with any of the lighting?
No, the lighting is all dark skies, and we basically have the photometric plan that is going to bid, which shows no light emitting into the wetland areas. Okay, there was also a letter, I believe, maybe from the Mill Condo Association?
Well, sure, yes, I think there are some other letters in here. There's...
There aren't, okay, good. There aren't any. The closest, if you look at this aerial, you come down, this is the parking lot for the Mill Pond area here, coming off of North River Street, and then this is the loop of Mill Road that has the extension that comes off where the existing facility is here. So this is a tile store, commercial use and residential zone that's been here for quite some time. This is a empty lot that's not occupied, and then this is Fireman's Field here, which again is somewhat of a similar facility. Obviously, it's an outdoor facility, summer use mostly for rental of parties and such. The Mill condos are here, and then there's the Sunset Creek development that is this area over here. But we're a good 150 feet to the nearest, and then it sort of gets further to the adjacent ones beyond that. And as I said, our proposed use is very much in keeping with the way that it's been utilized. The size of the facility, the amount of people, the way that we've sized our parking is all in keeping with what the existing facility has been doing. So it's really an update to what
well, how many people would accommodate now?
Yep. So they've had a variety of events with various sizes. What the parking delineates, and the way it is now and the way it will be, basically, is we've got 43 parking spaces on site, 5 of which are dedicated for employees, which is part of your regulation. And then we've got 10 off-street parking. Kevin alluded to us widening the existing Mill Road. We're planning to widen Mill Road by about 5 feet to allow for legitimate parallel parking for 10 spaces along the far side of the road. That's always been utilized as parallel parking, but it really cramps the ability to get in and out of there. So we're going to just move the curb, keep the pole, and move the curb over 5 feet to let enough to meet the town requirements for full parallel parking along those lines. So between the on-site parking and this parking, it's allowing us a total of 144 people. The way the regs work is we have to dedicate the 2 as having simultaneous use, so the private club as well as the banquet hall. So we're proposing a dedicated 21 seats in the bar, which is what's there now, and 123 is a max capacity for the hall, and that is inconsistent with what sort of has happened as far as parties there in the past. So we're in keeping with that.
So you're not going to have any increase in size?
There's no increase in size.
Of
No,
the
the hall is the same size. I mean, it might be, it's arguably more functional because it'll be a free span. It won't have the wing walls that come out. But they're looking to take it a little higher scale. Right now it's got these types of tables.
Right.
We're looking to go to around, 8 or 10 person table to make it a little bit nicer facility that way. And that definitely reduces the density of the seating count. So even though we have more sort of square footage, the tables that they're planning to use aren't going to be the banquet tables that they have been using, where you've been to events where you can't even get down the aisles. That's not the plan in the future.
Gotcha.
And I think, from a vantage point of the parking and the way it works, it's been functioning quite well in the past. I don't think that there were no complaints with the police or anybody. There's been really nothing coming forward associated. So I think it will be very consistent as far as the use. I will say there probably will be more events because it is nicer, potentially. I think the majority of the additional will be during daytime hours. I think the facility now will bring in, they've already gotten people talking about running yoga and other things, and then as well, obviously, the programs that they're planning for the VFW members.
Are there any curfews, or can they go to like midnight or 1 a.m.?
So currently, the way that the existing permit is written, they have a liquor license which drives the way that the closure needs to happen associated with the liquor license, which I think is 2 a.m. We're basically would like to and would be willing to put a limitation on the amplified sound DJ and bands to end their work, basically, which is going to facilitate basically moving everybody out of the hall, have them end at 11 o'clock during the weekdays and at 12 o'clock on weekends. That would be our proposal that we'd like to put forward for amplified music, DJs and bands to have to end any event at that time. There will be a lag, obviously, of people egressing from the site, but that's the way it's been functioning and it's been successful, and that seems to fit in the way that the requests are made to them. And that will be, a few events. One of the things I will speak to about sound control is currently, it's kind of a hodgepodge. The HVAC system is not adequate for the numbers of people that are in there, and so a lot of people are outside. They're on the patio, and the doors and windows are open. The new facility has to be built to code and has to be designed to the max loading of the hall, and so we'll have adequate air conditioning to basically keep that under control and cool when there's 123 people in there.
Would there be any opportunities where there would be music outside?
No, we'll say in our proposal that there would be no amplified exterior music. They don't plan to use the patio. The patio will be basically a smoking area, an overflow area, a talking space or something like that, like it is now, but it's not going to be an active part of the facility. The facility will be inside, and it'll be an overflow kind of capacity that the patio is, and won't have a bar set up out there and won't have amplified music or anything along those lines.
That's what the fireman's field's for.
That roadway you have in there is relatively narrow. Is that a bottleneck, or would you be
The
able
road?
to? Yeah, right.
It's one way. So it's one way in and it's one way out, and it's 21 feet wide. So it's actually quite generous. You're saying
I'm just asking if two cars could pass going opposite directions.
this main road?
Yeah.
No,
around the back, go to the parking lot.
Going here?
Oh, is that the way you're going to have it?
Two cars can't pass it, so it's going to be a one-way in.
You're
and
going
out.
to have access to the parking lot from the back, or
No,
this,
no,
on
this-
the water side?
Just nothing on the water side. No cars come back in
Right.
this area.
Right.
So it's a loop in and out and out, and we're widening the road so that they'll be meeting the town requirements for the road to be, I think it's 22 feet of clear passing lane plus the 9 feet for the parking.
Yeah, now people parallel park along the road as it exists, and it's a bottleneck now.
That's what I
And
thought it was.
We're proposing to widen the road out so that parallel parking will
Oh,
be
yeah, you
accommodated
got
and
safety
still be
equipment
able
to
to
fire or whatever might
safely
be.
pass for cars.
I mean, it's even worse than that because people
Yeah.
perpendicular park along the
They
building
park
and then
along
they
the building
parallel park
also,
along
yeah.
here, so it's very tight.
I've been in there before where it's one-way traffic.
Yeah.
When do you anticipate starting?
So with the state grant, there's quite a bidding process that we need to facilitate and move through. But the aim upon approval here will be, and we have one more public hearing mandatory that we need to go through. We'll race to try and get bid sets out probably in April. Go through negotiations, probably take 2 months. So it'll be early summer that we would probably break ground on. And it depends on what contractor comes on. It's probably a 9 to 12 month, depending on the scale of the contractor and how they approach it. But it's actually The building will be a slab on grade. We're thinking and proposing it to be a timber frame, so there'll be a timber frame raising and then a SIP panel installation. We've done a few of them. I mean, the facility that we did with the Audubon had a closed-in building basically in 3 weeks because the timber frame is cut off-site. It comes on, is erected in basically a week, and then the SIP panels go on, the roofing goes on, and you've got a closed building. So it's a very quick construction compared to a lot of more complex types of construction. A lot of it's done off-site as well. So I think it'll come together pretty quickly, but I do think we're probably this time next year is the soonest you would have a facility in operation. Probably would be, more like April.
Yeah, or summer.
Potentially, yes.
Can I just go back to the generator again?
Yes.
So this is a water-cooled engine?
Yep.
And it's going to have it's going to be self-contained?
It'll be a self-contained, and we will get a low, there's an insulated shell that they have available.
It's gas-powered? And when
It'll
I say
be a
gas,
propane, it'll be natural, it'll be propane, yes, it's, no, I take that back. It'll be natural gas. We have natural gas to the site. Sorry.
And somehow somebody's concerned about noise somewhere?
Yeah, a couple of the members of the Inland Wetlands Commission are concerned about the low-frequency vibrations interfering with the waterfowl that are there right now.
I have a 135,000 watt generator, and it runs, and inside the building you can't hear it. It's 20 feet from the building.
Yep.
I mean, there are the generators today have to meet certain standards for noise emission that's very low.
Yes, I will say that some of the residential air-cooled ones are pretty loud,
but the water-cooled ones,
yes, right,
are not.
Right. Once you're,
and on top of that,
this is like a 30K probably.
There's no fuel here. It's a pipe to the natural gas pipe to that unit. Unless somebody has some scientific evidence, which I would like to see before we make you go through hoops. I'd like to know what, if someone got the company that has the specs for the generator and said at X number of feet, this is the noise level. I'm not sure. I know how mine is, and you barely can hear.
I'll read that. I'll go back to the inland wetlands and read. I didn't get a copy of the actual final approval.
Actually, we have one that we.
Oh, good. Okay. If they state it as a requirement of approval. Then
Okay. So here we go. VFW regarding a site plan referral. This is from the Inland Wetlands Commission. At its Inland Wetland meeting on December 5, 2015, the Guilford Inland Wetlands Commission took the following action. VFW Post 76657 Mill Road, map 46, lot 62, zone R5. Site plan referral will remove existing building and replace with a new one in a different location. Construct a new parking lot and landscaping and widen Mill Road for parking within 100 feet upland jurisdictional review zone. Commissioner S. Williams made the motion to report favorably to the Planning and Zoning Commission for the site referral application with the following conditions. 1, the generator be located away from wetlands. 2, the site lighting to not illuminate into the wetlands. This regulated activity is approved based upon finding that there was no reasonable or prudent alternative in completion of this project. Very truly yours, Scott Williams.
So that is a condition of approval.
That's a condition.
So it's not, so they already agree with that, it seems like.
Yep.
I hope there was scientific evidence to back up to that.
How close is it to the wetlands in your proposed?
And there's no wetlands in the back where you can possibly...
No, we didn't have a flag because it was private property, but visually, it looks to be dry.
Well, that's what they said. They said.
And it was located in, we haven't moved it from where it was located when we had the meeting.
Okay.
So we'll pursue an alternative, but that actually gives me, I needed something that gave me a hardship associated with seeking a variance for it. I think that's the best solution is to bring it out here. Our actually utility, we're going to come off of a pole that's over here for our utility, which is actually not a bad location to place it. I think, so there were no other letters or anything that were submitted? Or okay.
We can keep on going here. I mean, I think there were quite a few. It's just, maybe not.
We do have representatives.
There is someone that would like to.
Peter J. Brown from Guilford, Minnesota.
Did you write a letter to us?
I have. I wrote a letter to the other commission.
Yeah.
I have a handwritten letter.
So
to give to
you want to speak on your behalf and not have some?
Yeah, and I have some questions.
That's good.
Why don't you go ahead now, sir?
My name is Peter Brown. I live at 110 Cherry Street in the Guilford Mill Pond, the Guilford Mill Association. He and I am the president of the association. We are 8 units. We have, and I'm speaking on behalf, we had a board meeting last night, and I'm speaking on behalf of all 8 of our board members. First off, I want to say that all of us residents at the Guilford Mill support our veterans, love our veterans. VFW has been a good neighbor. No problem with that either. One of the things, before I make a comment, is this issue of Mill Road being a dead end, Mill Street being a dead end. I don't know what the maps suggest, but the reality is that Mill, is it road?
Mill Road, yes.
Mill Road actually runs into Cherry Street. And it's a continuous, I don't know what the map said, but the reality is that you go up Mill Road and you bear right onto Cherry Street. What has been talked about as a dead end appears to be a private driveway into the VFW, and it's really not a road as far as practical use. I can't speak of what the maps say. So Mill Road runs into Cherry Street. Cherry Street is very, very narrow. There's no parking and all the rest. But I needed to explain that because I think that's very important, because this idea that it's a dead end is just not the reality of the world. It's just it appears to be a private driveway with parking. But as far as our concern of this, it's a residential neighborhood. The present position of the building is tucked away in a position where it helps reduces noise. Can you show me the
existing?
Yeah. And they're putting, again.
You look on this for the existing.
Well, I think there was a.
And the purple is,
No.
the purple is the existing one.
No, I think if you get.
This is the dotted.
Yeah, go to the other one. I think I don't want to touch yours. The present, you can show me, the present building is here.
It's right here. Yep.
Right. We are right here.
No, you're across
Right.
across Mill Road.
Okay, sorry, I don't know the map, but we're across the street. All right. And right now, this is out of our sight line, this is in our sight line. Our issue is not really, again, our concern is about noise, about lighting, and all the rest. So with that being said, should I read? I only have one copy of the letter. I wasn't as professional as everybody else, but January 20th, 2016, Planning and Zoning, Town of Guilford, Veterans of Foreign War, Post 766, Guilford, Connecticut, application for special permit. Dear members of the Guilford Zoning Board of Appeals, as you are aware, the Guilford Mill condominiums are located across the street and across the mill pond to the VFW. Our owners and immediate neighbors have concerns about the VFW's application. We are asking that you, as members of the Guilford Planning and Zoning, take into consideration our concerns when coming to any decision regarding the VFW's application for special permit. The VFW has been a good neighbor since our beginning in 2004. Since this is a residential area, our main concern with this application are any changes in noise and light pollution, especially with the repositioning of the main building closer to the water, which acts as an amplifier of light and sound, spillover parking onto narrow local roads in nearby town park, and hours of operation. We therefore respectfully request the following condition be posed as part of this process. Some of these have already been touched on by you all. Live bands or other programs, installation of any sound reproduction equipment, whether permanent or temporary, must be prohibited outside of the building. We have been assured in person by the architect that the new air conditioning system will preclude the necessity for open doors and windows during the summer, but we respectfully request that this be made a condition of use during the events when sound reproductive equipment is being used indoors. Any outdoor lighting in the east and south side of the building will be not taller than 8 feet, kept to a downward directed type that will not spill light into the neighborhood or onto Mill Pond. We request the total attendance of the 2 venues, meaning the private club and the banquet hall, be limited to the number of people who can reasonably be expected to park in the available spaces. The blind curves at the intersection of Mill Road and Cherry Street preclude on-street parking on those streets. and the Mill Pond Park cannot be taken over as to preclude regular public use. I'm going to change this because I think it's unreasonable. The hours of operation, we have no problem with the issues that was the operation that's pending now. I'm sorry, you discussed
11 o'clock midweek and 12 o'clock
for the bar,
midweek.
for service.
For amplified sound, DJs and bands would have to be on whatever the contract is with them, that they would stop at those times.
This letter says the hours of operation be restricted as the VFW is located in residential area. We are asking the hours of operation to be restricted. I'm going to amend this to 10 p.m. on weekdays, Sunday through Thursday, and 11 p.m. on weekdays, Friday and Saturday nights. I know the liquor license, I can't speak of what our law says because I'm not sure. And hearing what I hear, I'm hearing that the liquor license is what has to do with the hours of operation. Well, this is a residential area. I would ask that some restrictions be, if possible. I don't even know what the law requires about that. But seeing that it's a residential area, I don't want this place being open till 2 o'clock on a Saturday night or a Friday night. So we'd ask that it be 11 during the week and 12 o'clock on weekends. And the other concern is, I don't know what's good. The present building is nowhere near the pond. I mean, I guess anybody could wander and do something, but the proposed site's going to be very close to the pond. For the sake of safety, for the sake of safety, I hope there'll be some sort of barrier so people don't have any issues with drinking.
Could you just clarify that one more time? So, in your thing, you said 10 and 11, but then you said you'll amend it to 11 and 12?
Correct.
And is that what you proposed? 11?
What we would like is to have that, basically, if there is an event, that the amplified sound DJ or band be stopping at those times, and then there will be some egress after that, obviously, but that's the main catalyst as to whether people are there or not. But for us to actually have everybody off-site by those times is going to be very difficult. And the limited numbers in the private club, we're talking, 21 seats. We feel that, and they don't have amplified music and sound. They've been functioning there for the last 30 years without problems, without issues, and we'd like to not have a constraint of being forced to close the facility at that time, especially for the private club.
And at this time, you're not necessarily under any obligation to conform to these restrictions that are being presented to you because you're operating under a special permit that was given to you in...
Right. In 84, there was no time constraints associated with it. So the only constraint that's on the property right now is the liquor license from the state, which is, I think is it 1 o'clock and 2 o'clock?
Yeah, it's a club license.
It's the club. Oh, okay. So it's a private club license.
It's still the same.
But it's 1 o'clock and 2 o'clock. So that's what it's been functioning under for the last, since 1984.
So this is just self-policing?
This is self-policing, and it's basically, they're not planning to change the way that the events run, and the people that come in Guilford and such, aren't looking to stay out until 2 a.m.
Yeah.
It's not the case, but it would be a real challenge to have a wedding or something like that where everybody is gone and it's cleaned up and the lights are off and it's closed at 11 o'clock. I mean, it's going to be a challenge to make that happen with what we're trying to do here from a vantage point.
Well, one of the concerns is that as good neighbors, they're doing this, they're creating this new building and creating a new image to increase their business. So that directly affects us. I mean, how it is now is one thing, but if we start utilizing it more and it starts to become
Larry can speak to it, but basically he's had all the weekends booked. I mean, it's not as though there's much room to expand. The only time that there might be expansion really, and where he's excited about, is to daytime use. That there's going to be, it's a nice enough facility to have, lectures and classes and sports, like yoga, Pilates, those sorts of things, to sort of take some of the pressure off of the community center and such. So that's where I think where it isn't being leveraged now because the space doesn't really, facilitate it. But he's had it booked, much of the time, much of the weekends, and so I don't think from a vantage point that there's going to be much increase in the weekend use or the sort of the worry that it's the larger events where there's 100 people there.
I think for Mr. Brown, the town does have a noise ordinance
Yes.
too that
Yes.
is enforceable.
Which is.
We hopefully never have to have it enforced. That's
Well,
the goal.
no, what to speak to that though is that it is in a residential district, so it is in actually it's 5 decibels less basically in the residential versus the commercial. So we're under that. And I will say that we went to a decibel rating, and all the squad cars have a meter that's at the property line. It's really a very simple thing to enforce, and it's something that's very no, but it's objective. I mean, it's if there is noise, they can quickly measure it. They're used to doing that, and that feedback can come into the loop. I know you don't want to police and be in that position, but if there is a concern, that is something that is over us that basically can be can have a citation and actually have a correction.
The VFW has been a very good neighbor. I stand by that. It's concerned. The concerns are, and the restriction, what we propose, and where do I bring the letter? This letter to, by the way. Lisa, thank you. If I could change the 11 to 10, 11 to 11, 12.
So to address the other questions, so the lighting, and I think you're mostly concerned with the visible lighting, which is on this side. So these are all under 8 feet tall. They're all dark skies initiative that are the building lighting. So this will be very localized to just the patio spaces adjacent to the building. And then this area, it's not really feasible, and it appears that in your letter you were talking about the views to the pond on these 2 sides. But these, we are using a 12-foot pole, because basically an 8-foot pole would get hit by a truck or whatever.
I can't speak to that.
Okay.
I know that you've made assurances.
Yes, so there's no light pollution, and your parking is actually almost 6 feet higher in grade, and so, from your perspective, the poles are actually, 6 feet tall. So, I think it'll be better than the floodlights that are there now that light the parking lot.
Can I ask a question? The pictures that you have, that you showed, is that of another facility?
It is another facility, just to show the style of
Can I just see that again? How close to that? How close to that is the finished product going to look?
I'm not sure about the color. I can't speak to that. But as far as the materials and the cupola and the roofing, it's similar. I mean, it's got a wing. It's got more detail, more roofs. This is simpler as it's a barn, but it's a similar in styling, the window scale and that sort of thing. And we do have an aluminum fence that is running the property boundary along this edge, so it'll be a 4-foot pool fence, but black aluminum, so it's somewhat discreet, so it falls into the...
Are the flag poles and all going to still be there?
They're going to all be here, right here.
Okay,
so they stay. And right here, you can see boom, boom, right here. And then they fall here. Those lights are also proposed to stay. Those are currently lit, and we're not touching them, so those will light the flags through the night. No music outside, we already spoke to that and promised that. As far as keeping the doors and windows closed, I mean, from a logistics of how to enforce that is going to be somewhat difficult. I'm not sure that is, I think the noise ordinance kind of protects against that if someone has the windows open. I just don't know how to promise that doors, with a facility like this.
As we sit here and think about it, that obviously makes sense. But our request is made to you all and to the commission, obviously, because we're right there, and all we ask and what we're putting on is that if a special permit is granted, that there be conditions that make it keep a nice residential area. It's beautiful, we love it there, and again, my own biggest issue is that Mill Road is not a dead end. As the map suggests.
But this is, the town owns this, actually. They own Mill Road, and they actually own Paper Street that goes all the way through the adjacent properties.
Goes all the way to Long Hill Road.
Goes to Long Hill Road. And so this is town-owned. We don't own this parcel, this land. And so that, we actually, and that I should speak to that, to widen the road, we do have preliminary approval from Mark and Jim to get BOS approval for that, but we will have to go and get actual official BOS approval actually to work on that road. But that'll be on our dime, and it was approved as far as the wetland.
When you're referring to the road, that's the dirt.
No, it's a paved road. This is a paved Guilford Road. The bridge costs quite a bit from the town coffers.
What I'm talking about, I'm confused about if you say a dead end.
So this is the loop that you're talking about. So this is Mill Road, and then there's a Mill Road here that's called Mill Road 2 that's owned by the town.
Yeah, but you're calling the road adjacent to the facility as a road.
Right.
And I'm suggesting to you, and I'm just suggesting to the people, here on the commission, that may be a road on the map, but in reality, it looks like a private driveway to the VFW.
Right now,
It's not, and it's not a road that is used.
Yeah.
It's, in all intents and purposes, it's a driveway that leads past the tile shop, and then, and the only people that go there are the people who go to the VFW.
Yeah, but in preparation, I mean, there is paper easement that goes and connects to, there would be another river crossing over here, so it probably may not or will not happen in the future, but it's on the plans actually to get more east-west connection in town, and so it's actually, the town owns the ability to connect that road, so we have to prep our facility somewhat in preparation should they ever want to extend that road.
I never even knew there a road existed back there.
Yeah.
That's what you're suggesting, because
It's just a paper, it's just a paper easement, yeah.
but if you look at it now, there's no actual road.
It's a path.
It's a path, yes.
All right. Well, thank you. I have nothing further.
Good job.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Well, wait, do we still have to hear about the camp?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, on the camp part of it. We are proposing all of the roof drainage and the first inch of rainfall that falls in the parking lot to come into a single catch basin and go into an underground storage facility to hold that rainwater. And we have the silt fence that goes around the perimeter of the property to protect the wetlands from the construction. We are going to be starting the construction of the new building while the existing building is still in place. And the bar part of the existing building will be used consistently through construction. And the banquet facility part of it, if I understand correctly, will be used as a staging area for the construction materials of the new building. When the new building is finished, then the old building will come down. And we have an existing code-compliant septic system in place, which right now we are pumping the effluent up into that system. We will be doing a gravity flow from the new building into that same existing system, which is pretty much over-designed right now. And Dennis Johnson, I think, has a letter in there stating that it will still function for the new building as well. So there's no changes with the existing septic system. And holding all of the site drainage except for a small portion right in this area here, which will flow down the road into the existing catch basins. Right now, all of the site drainage flows off-site or down the road to these basins. None of it is being held on-site. So it's an improvement on what is there now, being that we're going to hold a lot of that rainwater that's coming onto the site, on our site. I don't think there's much else. We have an existing water service coming to this building, which we propose to extend over to the new building. There's also a gas line that comes to the existing building that we will extend to the new building. So, and the utilities come, right now they're overhead over the existing building. We propose to go underground from a pole over in this location up to the building. I think that's about it.
So this used to be a laundry. Are there any concerns about any brownfield issues?
About any what?
Ground contamination from prior use.
I don't know as to that concern. I haven't heard any concerns. I don't know of any concerns.
Was it a laundry?
It was a laundry years ago, and there was a septic system out in the road here. There's still some metal covers for that system, which will, it's right about in the area of where we're proposing our in-ground system, so that will, if they hit into it, they will have to take that out to put in the new stormwater system. But I don't know of any concerns with contamination.
Yeah.
Not necessarily here.
Trip into anything. All right.
Just to clarify one thing with the construction sequence, I think most likely the way that the addition of the banquet hall was put on, it was an addition, and the main old facility that has the private club is a separate building, a separate HVAC, and a separate power entrance. So the hope is that we can actually take off the banquet hall, give room for the site to access, and just maintain the club as long as we can, if it does make sense. A lot of that will come as feedback from the contractor as to the feasibility of that. But that's the hope, is that we can give them another 4 or 5 months during construction of use of that until that needs to come down to complete the site work. But I think that the banquet will come down right at the get-go.
Okay.
Any questions? Do we have any other letters or anything?
Not that I'm aware of.
No, Josh read them all.
Read them all.
Good work, Josh, thank you.
Thank you.
You want to add anything else, or?
No, I think we've covered everything.
I'll make a motion to continue this.
See if that's the
Mr.
public.
Chairman, I believe you have one more comment at least.
Yes, sir, come on up.
Hi. My name is Patrick Kinney. I live at 387 North River Street, so I'm a neighbor of the VFW, sort of down the other end of the pond and across the street from Commissioner Wallace. So I just wanted to say three things. The VFW, we've lived in town for 12 years. The VFW has been a great neighbor. It's a very clean facility. It's quiet, respectful. I applaud the work that they do. I've attended many events there and been a part of a lot of charitable efforts that have gone on there, and I think they're really connected to the community. I also think that the way they've gone about this should be, the model for how people do this. They've been very transparent. He's giving me a signal.
Hold that thought, we're going to take
Sure,
a break, we're going to
sure.
come right back to you.
Supposed to give to Shannon 5 minutes.
Yeah.